The Changemakers, How Daughters Are Remaking India, Inc. To moderate this session, I would like to call on one of the iconoclasts of Indian banking. She was former head of HSBC India and the first woman to head the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Currently chairperson of Max Financial Services Limited, may I welcome onto stage the beautiful Naina Lal Kidwai. Ashni Biani is Director of Future Consumer Limited. She leads a team that understands the nuances of Indian consumers and has led the launch of a number of retail formats for the Future Group. Ladies and gentlemen, Ashni Biani. Namita Thapar is the Executive Director of M-Cure Pharmaceuticals, a global pharmaceutical company headquartered in Pune with a turnover of 4,000 crores, a presence in over 60 countries, and an employee strength of over 10,000. A round of applause for Namita Thapar. And finally, Nidhi Tanti is Vice President and Head of the Business Review Committee and New Business Development at Suzlon Group. She is a key driver of sustainability and represents India at the Global Future Council of the World Economic Forum. Please welcome onto stage Nidhi Tanti.
So, how long before we see Mehra and daughters and Patel and daughters on every street corner? 14% or thereabouts in a survey are entrepreneurs that are women in India. But a minuscule number within that are indeed the women who are leading businesses in family-owned situations. So, is it a silver spoon that these young ladies have been born into and with, or a crown of thorns? And that's what we're going to discuss today. So for those of you who think it's very easy, and they were like, hey, you know, maybe we are the privileged guys, and you folks in the audience are going to think, well, boo-hoo, who's going to be crying for you guys? The truth is, each one of them is there through issues which cannot be called easy. It is not an easy journey, joining a family business and taking up the reins. So let me start by posing this question to each of you, and we'll go with Ashni to start with. And the question, Ashni, is, so what did you have to do to get there, to be recognized, to have your father anoint you into the business and accept you there? And equally important for everyone there, the employees, to take you seriously.
Sure. So, unlike many of the women in business, I never studied business. I studied design, and I was not only inducting myself into the business, but I was inducting myself in business as well. So my first struggle was really to understand the ropes of business. The second really was to perhaps counter every criticism that came our way, counter every doubt. Are you going to be around? Oh, now you're going to have a baby. Oh, you just got married. Are you really serious about this? So I think the only way to do it is through a lot of hard work and just persisting and getting your way out there. For me, I think it was I think I had an edge because as a woman in a consumer-centric business gives you a certain advantage. So that was really my edge. And as a thought leader, I made my mark, and the organization accepted me first, and then, I guess, my father.
Yeah. So, Namita.
I think, Naina, that's a great question because I definitely was expected to prove myself before I could join the business. And so I became a chartered accountant at the age of 21. And then I went abroad to do my MBA at Duke University. So I had to have 2 degrees. And I worked in the US for 7 years in a couple of public companies, multiple roles. And then I was considered competent and capable to join the family business. So it was pretty stereotypical in that sense. But I think it's good because of the degrees and the work experience abroad, that gave me a lot of credibility when I joined the business. And then, of course, that's just the starting point. After that, your work has to speak for itself.
Yeah. And let's go to you now, Nidhi.
So in my case, it was quite different. It was never to start off to join a family business. I was set out to be an investment banker to begin with. So I went through the grit of core 16 to 18 hours of a workday, growling through early mornings, late nights. And then I started believing through my deals that I was doing mostly in telecom, media, and renewables. That's how the love for renewables came in first, more than the love for the family business. And I think that's what drew me in. So I came to join in family business after the financial markets had gone down. And I did not come in from an engineering background. I did not come in from knowing various technological advancements, which was core to a wind or a solar manufacturing company. So I joined in at the most stepping stone in the company. I started from the manufacturing floor. I started out through the technology, the supply chain level, went through that grid, and then ended up starting out two biggest functions that the company has seen. And I think overall the change was quite dramatic because there was a cultural change. I went out of India from a budding age of 9th grade to UK, and then to Hong Kong, then to Canada, and then to India. So cultural changes, being a female, being the chairman's daughter, not knowing what kind of engineering setup where you were coming from, to now really understanding the nitty-gritty through literally climbing the ladder up.
Yeah. And Nidhi, so to continue with you, siblings, you have a brother.
Yes.
And how were you perceived in the business, given that you had a male sibling, and how did the family determine who took charge of what?
So fortunately, me and my brother, since our stepping stone of ages, we never went into a competition with each other. But somehow I realized as soon as we joined into business and he was looking into another segment of the same business, it somehow became that the societal norm came out to compete us with each other. So where we didn't have anything against each other, everybody would come and question me. What is it that your brother's going to do? How come you're in the title of running a public-based company, which is the biggest in your portfolio, and your brother's starting out a whole new venture of, working in a power sector company? So how is this helping out? How long are you there? Is this going to change by the time you get married? Is it a transition setup that you're doing, then he's going to take over? So all sorts of these questions ended up coming. But I think what really helped was, at least between us as siblings, we've seen the years through high school, we're just a few years apart. So the inter-rivalry didn't happen. But yes, there was, I think, all efforts made to try and get us to compete with each other.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Namita, you too have a male sibling, so this is interesting, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, same thing here. We have a lot of love and trust. And fortunately, I come from an extremely progressive family. My father and mother, I think that's where it all begins, treated me as an equal. In fact, I think they loved me more than him. My brother's convinced he's adopted, So I think that goes a long way, that you're given those opportunities, you're given that love. So I don't think it was ever an issue about me joining the business. But like Nidhi said, it's more societal and their assumptions and their stereotypes. And in that sense, it is harder because if I leave at 4, so I'm much older than my two friends here, and I have a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. And if I were to leave to go pick up my son or go and go for one of the birthday parties, oh, she left at 4, that's a big thing. So I think it is harder in that sense to break some of those societal stereotypes.
And within the company too.
And especially within the company.
And we have a young mother in Ashneet, a 3-year-old. And why would you not bring your kid to work? You're privileged. You can do it. I know I hesitated through all my career for a variety of reasons. But you guys, you can do it.
Yeah. So I do it. I do it every time I'm working late hours, the guilt sets in and I'm like, okay, bring her over and we're going to handle both the meetings and playtime with her. So I think that's a privilege that we enjoy. I definitely feel like that's something that's unique and available to us. And the more I can access it and not feel guilty about accessing it, the more I will allow the environment around me to also progress.
Yeah. And you're okay, therefore, that other women in the company do it, right? Because it can't be just for you.
Right. So I think it's important we encourage that. Even at the stores, we encourage that. And a lot of the work that we are now doing towards creating any policy around women is first in our organization is centered towards stores. Around 30% of the workforce at the store is women. And I think for them to come to work is genuinely a big idea for us. Every 1 rupee that they make adds so much to the entire country at large, right? So many more aspirations get developed there. So much more empowerment happens through that. So all our efforts are actually directed to the stores and the women at the store feeling comfortable, having a safe workplace, and to having a more accessible, sort of a warm environment.
Okay. And Namita, your views on, so do you bring the babies to work?
You know, I'm extremely lucky. In fact, my mother's sitting right here. I have a fantastic support system that, she watches mine and my brother's kids while we work. So we typically don't do that because it just reinforces stereotypes in my mind. And personally for me, it's not so much about that, but it's distracting. So I have a switch on, switch off mechanism. And so I just want to be at work when I'm at work, and at home, I want to be a mother. So I'm very lucky that I have that support system.
So you've never really...
And I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah. And as we talk about, the family support systems, and for both of you with children, it becomes important. In your case, it's the mother. In your case, Ashni, you've have the advantage of being able to bring the child to work. Also,
yes.
And you have the support system.
Yes.
So these are important. In a book I put together of 30 women CEOs, the interesting example was actually a common theme, and that was the great institution of the mother-in-law.
Yes.
So lesson number 1, be nice to your mother-in-law. Yeah. And the mother-in-law was the one who stood behind the women when they came to work. Often she lived in the family. And in fact, being nice to the mother-in-law is a very critical part of your network. So you mentioned mother-in-law?
Absolutely.
Anywhere?
Very important.
Very important.
Nidhi, important advice to you. Yeah.
Look forward to.
And
I think you can't do it without many women together.
And the husband,
And the
right?
husband,
Yeah.
I think most important. It's extremely important to have a secure husband. And in fact, I was talking to you that that's probably the most important career choice a woman's going to make. Because you need someone who's going to celebrate your victories, not feel insecure when you're in the limelight, and truly be the wind beneath your wings. Easier said than done. So I think it is an important career choice.
So Nidhi, you're taking all this advice.
I'm pretty
You're going to
sure
interview
taking
those
notes.
guys to make sure they get it.
Yes.
Yeah. So as we look at the future, and you are just so fortunate, you've had the education, you've had a support system right from the start, from your childhood, where the parents encouraged the son and the daughter to progress. The mantles that you have assumed within your companies has come with all that support. But within the company, employees, you mentioned that there was initially at least this thing about, well, maybe you're going to get married and move off. But now you've proved your mettle. How do you find employees interacting with you? You're in very traditional businesses. So what percentage of women do you have in your company?
So we have, and I think Namita was there when we did this entire discussion last week on the Women's Day. We have about 4%.
4%.
And that is dramatically low. And reason is, of course, it's hardcore engineering energy company. So the first immediate bias comes to go, smartly to get too attractive to Ashni's level on getting into the consumer sector, then the financial sector. And I think it's very difficult to get that number up. But luckily, we have now targeted the quadrupling of this number by 2022.
So how?
So that's a steep target.
How are you going to do this?
Completely in energy, actually creating a whole ecosystem. So we have offices across India, then we have manufacturing plants, and then we have remote site conditions. So for each of these areas, we're putting in basic hygiene facilities. We're providing the relevant childcare facilities, which are encouraging more women to come in. We're trying to provide travel facilities, irrelevant of the hierarchy. They get to pick up during early morning travels and the late night travels. We're also going through various shifts of how do they actually work around their job and careers. So there's certain positions which are difficult, climbing a 140-meter tower 2 times a day takes an extremely tenuous effort on your body. So we're trying to work out the harnesses and the systems, making it technologically equipped, to saying how can we still give those job opportunities to women rather than just having that discounted as an option. So we're creating an ecosystem around to help.
So it needs women at the helm, as we heard earlier, to be the shoulders on which other women will climb.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we shall all go to hell.
Oh yeah,
right?
the special place in hell, like Sherry said. I love that.
Yeah. And so Namita, at your organization, women, and how are you enabling and helping?
Right. So we have, at MQ, we have 10,000 employees. 6,000 are in the sales positions pan-India. And sales is very difficult for women because, you know, a doctor's chamber, you have to go post 9 or 10 o'clock, there are safety issues. But the 4,000 women who are more in Pune, we have 10%. We started a program 5 years back called Prerna, like she said, ecosystem. So we had a lot of policies in place, whether that's women speakers, some of the flexible time kind of arrangements, networking lunches with women mentors. So we put a lot of policies in place, and we've gone from 5% to 10% in a span of 5 years. But of course, that's a very small number. And we hope that with new policies and more efforts, we can get to a much higher number.
Yeah. But you are doing work aside from the company in terms of young entrepreneurs.
Oh, yes, yes. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up because on the side, on weekends, I've got a US franchise to India. It's in 6 cities called Young Entrepreneurs Academy. It teaches entrepreneurship to 11 to 18-year-olds. But it's fun. You have speakers, you have field trips, you have a Shark Tank style investor panel. And what's really amazing, and I love that, is we have 41% girls. I think that's very symbolic, and that makes you optimistic of where we might be a few years down the road. So that's definitely a great statistic compared to some of the ones Andrea spoke about this morning. Like, she was one of 3 women, Fortune 500. That's gone to 6% right now. And in India, it's 8 out of 500 for BSE 500. So if you look at this 41%, I think there's a ray of hope.
There's hope, absolutely. And Ashni, you just said that you're already at a third of your...
Right. So we have around 25 to 30% women employees all across the group. I think we're very fortunate to have that diversity. It's important to our business to have that diversity. We always refer to the consumer as a she. So she brings in all the right perspectives for us to take decisions. You know, we do very, very simple things at the store. And it may sound really strange to be saying this on a panel like this, but one of the things that I have personally led is just having great toilets at our stores. I remember my days when I used to be standing on the store floor, and one of my biggest challenges was to use dirty toilets. So one of the things that we've done as an organization is create the best fun rooms, fun zones as we call it, and we have special toilets for women at the back of our stores that are managed and maintained by them only. And I think that one single effort has reinstated the faith of women who work on the retail floor to want to work with us as a preferred brand.
Yeah. I think you raised a very interesting point, because I used to often say I would assess a company on its women friendliness by the toilet quotient. And one is the cleanliness of the loos, but also where the loos were.
Exactly.
And when I started, I mean, the closest loo was on the 4th floor when I worked on the ground floor. And you know, it took a lot of time on a slow lift when you were dying to go to the loo. So, and now, thank goodness, we're not only talking about the quantity of loos, but the quality. I mean, this is great. India's arrived. So the loo quotient.
Yes,
well done. So, outstanding examples, all 3 of you. I was curious about the fact that given how few of you there are, that the coming together hasn't happened. And I mean, this is almost a shout out to the Economic Times, to Facebook. We need a group of exactly women such as these who can come together, and the aspiring ones who can be mentored, because it isn't easy to enter these spaces. And they don't exist. We have 3 wonderful women here who barely know each other. And think of all the ones out there who could benefit from the experience here. So we need this. We need these networks. And I do hope that you could give it time. But your thoughts on this, because it will need your time. And the issue with women and networking is always, hey, we've got a job to do, we've got our families to run, so where is the time? So how would you carve out time to be mentors to others? Is this a role you see for yourselves?
I think it's extremely important. There are a lot of women I mentor, and the biggest thing, it's like my big quote, that women are extremely good at time management. I mean, we're multitaskers, we're fantastic at that, but we suck at guilt management. It is such a big issue with women, and I think more so in India. So I've really worked with a lot of women to get rid of that guilt quotient and just tell them it's okay to be selfish and no one's going to applaud you. You know, you got to do this once in a while. So I think having someone who's older than you tell you some of those things goes a very long way. So, and like Sherry said and Andrea said, that people who are in positions of privilege and power have a larger responsibility to give back. And I do hope we can see more of that in the coming years, Naina.
Yeah. So where's your guilt quotient?
Oh, with age you become thick-skinned. That's a good thing.
But do you? You've still got a guilt quotient when you don't pick up your kids at school, you were saying?
It's a lot lesser than what it was before. So it's, all those affirmations and mind training. I mean, I was the most guilt-ridden person 10 years back, but I think that's what happens when you're in your 40s and you've been through life and you get wiser and a lot of white hair, that you realize that it's damn if you do and damn if you don't, right? If you're sitting at home, you're guilty that you wasted a degree. If you're working, you're guilty that you couldn't go pick up your child. So just listen to that inner voice, find a good balance, and be at peace with it. So I think we got to work with that.
Very well said. Yeah. And Ashmi, your guilt quotient?
It's at an all-time high right now. So that's the honest truth of it. But I don't think the guilt is ever going to go away. I think maybe we just have to make our peace with everything that we do and that we're doing a great job because we're doing so many more things. I have a lovely assistant who I was telling you about. At 5:30, she'll come and say, come on, second shift starts now, go home, you got to do this, this, that. And I just love that I have her. I just love that I have a community of women with whom I can share this experience with. And I think that is enough for me, at some level. And that should keep growing.
Yeah. And I hope all this doesn't scare you and that you have a guilt quotient in very different quarters. But the networks, and why aren't we hearing more from women like you? Why aren't you being able to give your voice and time to encouraging others? You're so buried in your businesses that we need voices like yours.
I agree. I don't think we give enough time to it. I think in the same place, we women are working 5 times harder than our male counterparts. So that's where the energy is perhaps getting lost.
But you have another role. So Nidhi.
I think I would say more from the point of all the challenges we just discussed. That's where we've been occupied for all these years. One is constantly proving yourself. We were just discussing back then, saying, you finish one thing, there's next challenge. There's somebody literally waiting to tell you, you can't do this. So then you get on to the next level of proving them wrong, getting to another challenge of getting through that hierarchy. So I think probably one of the reasons why we haven't got around to becoming so much in these kind of group orientation is probably that individually there's been so much of struggle and fight to get to where we are. But I think now that we have come to this space, and I think good to have a forum like ET, and even a mentor like you, I would say, to take us to that level where we can be an example setter. We can be there to tell other women, and I think in all of our individual capacities we do that. We do it offline to our relatives, to our cousins, to the aspiring people from our universities and alumni networks, that yes, you can, and there's so much more you can do this. Not getting caught in the guilt trip, and of course, trying to see if, like you said last time, and we were just discussing, saying, how do you see a challenge? I think challenge is just another way of proving that you can to somebody, rather than getting feared by the challenge to saying, no, if I don't do this, the world will collapse under my floor.
So Nidhi, I just love this because the same detractors, the people who didn't believe in you, could have been the ones that got you despondent and out. But you converted that negative energy to a positive one for yourself to prove to that uncle, to that aunt, to that somebody out there who turned around and said, waste of time, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be out there getting married and having children. And you were out to prove, hey, I'm different, and I will prove that I can do it differently. So well done to that. And it is that fighting spirit which I'm sure we can lean on for all of you to take forward as you go ahead in your remarkable careers. So we're coming to the end of this panel, and I want to close with advice. Advice from each of you to the women out there as to what they could do and should do to become more like you.
I think the most important thing is really to not give up. I think it's really hard, but you just got to stay the course, because it's going to give you deeper meaning and deeper satisfaction at some level. If it does, you know, don't give up.
Yeah. I keep repeating myself, guilt management, just get an A+ in that. And secondly, like Steve Jobs says, that don't let the noise outside drown your inner voice. I mean, at some point, you have to trust that inner voice. Like Andrea said, the compass and the clock. I think that was beautifully said. You have to rely on that inner voice.
Yeah. I actually have a few. So one thing starting out, I would say, it really helped to see when you're coming in from a family business not to get stuck into this aspect of entitlement. Yeah. You know, just because, be it a girl or a boy, I think this advice goes a long way to saying, with the millennials, you often see that this entitlement factor comes in before the hard work comes in. So I would always say, try to get out first before you join your family business. It really helped me a lot. It doesn't have to be the same for everybody, but I think it helps to get a benchmark, get an understanding of not your own bubble and creation. Because in your family, while they may be at hardships, they will still treat you a little differently. So getting really to know what your skills and ability are, try to work out, then come in. Yeah. And I think at no point, at any given point in time in your career, show power over respect. Yeah. I think everybody in any company, people that work for you, are not working for you. They're working for that organization and for the betterment of something tomorrow. Right? So that work means so much to them that I always feel with the millennials or the entitles or the family business, never to take it that I'm here to deal in power. I'm here to give respect back. I'm here to support, and I'm here to do the best I can. Yeah. So I think stick the course.
So, you know, with the wisdom you've seen up here, with the inputs and the amazing choices these women have made, I think India has a bright, bright future. So thank you so much for being so frank with your inputs. Thank you.